let us do the news. And we start with a follow-up to a story that I was talking about yesterday. It was reported that most of the major insurance providers for maritime vessels sailing through the Strait of Hormuz, most of these outfits are out of London, particularly Lloyd's. They cancelled insurance coverage for maritime vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of those vessels essentially dropped anchor and remained in a holding pattern because it just wasn't safe for them to move. There is a war going on over there. And also, if anything were to happen to them, the loss could prove catastrophic to the companies that own those vessels because they're not insured. This was something that we were told, going to potentially grind everything to a halt. Perhaps even trigger the next worldwide recession. Trigger some sort of cascading failure throughout the system on par with the 2008 financial crisis. Well, just an hour ago, this breaking from the American president, Donald Trump. Effective immediately, I have ordered the United States Development Finance Corporation to provide at a very reasonable price political risk insurance and guarantees for the financial security of all maritime trade, especially energy, traveling through the Gulf. This will be available to all shipping lines. If necessary, the United States Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible. No matter what, the United States will ensure the free flow of energy to the world. The United States' economic and military might is the greatest on earth. More actions to come. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Signed, President Donald J. Trump. So, insurance is back on. Except it's not going to be Lloyd's and the London insurance houses providing it. Instead, it's going to be the Americans. The United States Development Finance Corporation. You see what I was talking about yesterday, chat? You see what I was talking about? How things are fairly fluid. Things can change at a very rapid pace. And what might be an accurate picture today might not be so tomorrow. But, as I emphasized yesterday, what's important is that you keep calm and carry on. Don't lose your head over this. And what do we see here? Yesterday you had people panicking because vessels sailing through the Strait of Hormuz were losing their insurance because Lloyd's and other companies refused to cover them. The United States, 24 hours later, steps in and says, we'll cover you. Anything happens, we've got you covered. We'll even send in the Navy to escort you through the strait and make sure that the energy flow keeps going. Similar situation with airlines flying out of Dubai's international airport. Over the weekend, the Dubai airport closed to all air traffic. No one was getting in, no one was getting out. You had people paying six-figure sums for private jet charters to get out of Dubai. And as of today, you've got airlines saying, yeah, we're back on. Things have settled down. We're resuming air travel in and out of the Dubai airport. Now, you can't really say the same thing for Tehran's international airport because a portion of it, I believe, has been blown to smithereens by US and Israeli bombings. But something that so many people were panicking about, the situation resolved itself a few days later. And what could have turned out to be a complete and total disaster for the world economy, on the level of the 2008 financial crisis or worse, has now been mitigated. The Americans are stepping in to say, we'll cover you. And if need be, we'll send in the Navy and we'll escort you through the strait. Don't know about you, chat, but an American naval vessel, I would feel quite safe sailing next to that. The Americans and the Royal Navy. Especially those two together. Sandwiched between something like the USS Abraham Lincoln, or the Gerald Ford, or the HMS Belfast. Yeah, I'd feel safe. I'd feel quite safe. Would sleep like a baby on the open water. Sure to Gal, hello, hello. Good to see you. How's it going? Going well. Had a fairly good day, got some important errands out of the way. And now I've got the afternoon and evening to spend with all of you. Life is pretty good right now. And as we've seen, yesterday a lot of people are panicking. Today, the panic is subsiding. Amazing what just taking a step back and waiting 24 hours can do for someone, or for the whole world for that matter. Incredible. Oh, this looks like a funny here. Apparently someone has made the American president and the Israeli premier into Jim Henson-style Muppets. Let me unmute the browser audio here. Arumamaru, tacos, where? Just DoorDash it. It'll be fine. It's fine. Let's take a look at this.
Baby, we got a problem. We might have to stop the war.
What? But we've already been...
I know, man, I know, but something happened that we did not anticipate.
Well, how? We've infiltrated every single aspect of...
Because they waited days to do it, man. Days. They really caught us napping this time.
Pull yourself together, Donald. Talk to me.
I don't know how to say this, BB, but there's been a statement of utmost concern from the Europeans.
Those bottle caps better be attached to the missiles, Donald.
They're like, Monsieur President, you violated the Ayatollah's data privacy.
Your aircraft carriers are rated C- for energy efficiency.
I'm screaming. Boy, we could go
Oh,
on for
we're
weeks
really
like
broken
this.
up over
Oh,
that.
we will.
Weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and...
Puppet regime. Okay, that's pretty good. Little bit of brevity there. A little bit of levity. We could all do with some laughs, especially with a heady situation like that. The prices on all the following went low on the stock market in the time leading up and including the beginning of these events. Good for purchasing, buy when low, sell when high. RTX Corporation, General Electric Aerospace, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. How interesting that happened, Harold. And of course, for legal reasons, we're not giving out any sort of investment advice. Consult a qualified advisor for that sort of thing. Don't listen to people in chat. And certainly don't listen to VTubers for financial advice. If you do that, you're an idiot. Tacos. Also in Iranian news, this from Sharif Zachi. In the past few hours, hundreds of Iranian university professors and tech experts have signed a statement declaring the constitution of the Islamic Republic illegitimate and calling for the immediate transfer of power to the people, whilst endorsing Prince Reza Pahlavi's democratic transition plan, signatures increasing by the minute. Here's a statement from the group of university professors and technology professionals. To the great and noble nation of Iran, the constitution of any country is a reflection of the collective will in the social contract between the people and state. The constitution of the Islamic Republic has lost its legitimacy due to its fundamental incompatibility with the demands of the majority of the people. Clear evidence of this reality is the government's response over the past 3 decades to every civil request or action for constitutional revision or a referendum. A response that has consistently consisted of nothing but suppression, violence, and killing, as the ruling power is well aware that its path does not align with the will of the majority. Consistently consisted. That is a tongue twister. On this basis, we, undersigned of this statement, declare the Constitution of the Islamic Republic and any institution, council, or individual whose power is derived from it is completely invalid and illegitimate. We declare our support for the plan for the transition to democracy presented by Prince Reza Pahlavi, and we consider it a wise path for transitioning from the Islamic Republic. The governance structure and future leaders of Iran must be determined solely by the people of Iran and at the ballot box. Sensible. We call upon all remnants of the Islamic Republic regime to immediately relinquish power to its rightful owners, the people of Iran, to prevent further bloodshed and damage to the country. I think they're going to go down fighting. It is clear that the moral and legal accountability for any bloodshed and any harm inflicted upon the homeland rests solely upon those who, by insisting on the continuation of this illegitimate regime, stand against the will of the majority. We declare our readiness to collaborate in the reconstruction and prosperity of Iran following the transition from the Islamic Republic, and we shall spare no effort for the progress, greatness, and pride of Iran. Long live Iran. Lord Rexworth told you so you cannot claim he did not advise you not to. Yeah, something like that. So they were already won their way back up by the time this was part of the news cycle. Yeah, I imagine if you have any sort of defense stocks, any publicly traded companies that are part of the military-industrial complex, in your retirement account, your 401k, your IRA, that sort of thing. Yeah, you're probably pretty happy. You're probably feeling very pleased with yourself right now. Yeah, it's you're having a good day on the market. You're having a good day. Let me see here. Yeah, this is Iran International. Confirming Trump says U.S. to provide insurance for the Persian Gulf maritime trade region. Let's see. Get to this in just a moment. That as well. I believe this was the White House earlier today. Meeting with the German Chancellor. This from Visegrad 24. Reporter asking the question regarding Reza Pahlavi, is he an option in your mind? And here was the president's response.
Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, is he an option at all in your mind?
I guess he is. Some people like him, and we haven't been thinking about too much about that. It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate. I've said that. He looks like a very nice person, but it would seem to me that somebody that's there, that's currently popular, if there's such a person. But we have people like that. We have people that were more moderate. These were radical lunatics, and you know what they get? They get nothing. All they do is kill people.
Safe to say Reza Pahlavi is quite a moderate option, but we can understand if he's wanting to take a strict Venezuelan approach of work with the people that are already in there. It does raise an interesting point. Reza Pahlavi is technically an outsider. He is what you would call a pretender to the throne because he has not been coronated as the Shah, And he has been living in exile in the West for most of his life, I believe. DJQ500, hello, welcome in. And my congratulations to you. You are the 250th follower over on Kick. We just had the news of that with the Kick channel today. You are follower number 250, so congratulations. Generally, they have been more expensive than ever from 2022 onwards compared to the period since the war on ISIS, and generally also since the global war on terror. Yeah, I have to wonder how much of that is value add to the company and how much of that is something to do with inflation. Northrop Grumman, for example, was at its cheapest in recent memory in 2009 during the global financial crisis. Yeah, a lot of course, then again, you could say that for a lot of stocks out there in 2009. It was a bloodbath, but it was the perfect time to buy. Everyone was panicking, everyone was selling, and everything was at an all-time low. You bought in 2009, you were buying at the bottom of the market, and had you just held on through everything, probably even through COVID, you'd be sitting fat and happy right now. Sort of reminds me of those old stories about widows and grandmothers and people, height of the war, buying shares, height of World War II, buying shares in companies like Coca-Cola, for example. They, what we now know as fairly large blue chip type stocks. And people thought they were mad. You know, they were, United States in particular was still in the middle of the Great Depression, trying to fight the way out of it and also fight a war. And most stock trading was suspended. But after the war and into the 1950s, they did all right. I guess there's something to be said for buy and hold. Again, not providing any sort of investment or financial advice, but most people just aren't sophisticated enough to effectively time the markets. In fact, most people lose money trying to do that. Good time to invest some money in arms companies, for real, for real. Yeah, Rock Eater, welcome in. Good to see you. How have you been? 3-stream streak. Well done, Harold. Well done. Well done. But interesting point raised by Visegrad24. Trump saying Reza Pahlavi looks like a very nice person, but it would seem to me that somebody that's there, that's currently popular, if there is such a person, that's the thing, there is no such a person. There's a reason for why every video from every city in Iran during the mass protests in January showed the crowds chanting just one name, Reza Pahlavi. There is no other option for the transitional leader in Iran. The nation made its choice in January, and the choice was sent to the world with every video showing them chanting Crown Prince Pahlavi's name, whilst the Islamic regime security forces fired live bullets on the crowds. Seems a bit dramatic. There's always other options. I have never been a believer of anyone who claims there is no other option on anything. There's always other options. And to try and say this to an American president who is all about giving himself multiple options, multiple ways to win, yeah, it's going to go over like a lead balloon, isn't it? Settling down in a new place, soon we'll do Suhor. No idea what Suhor is, but congratulations on the new flat. Yeah, someone in the replies posting this, why Reza Pahlavi? Thousands of young people who made the ultimate sacrifice chanted his name. A major protest in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Los Angeles, and across Europe His name was the only one consistently chanted by Iranians abroad, and Iranians widely recognize his father and grandfather as the founders of modern Iran. And speaking of the Iranian royal family, AFP being published in the Times of Israel today, the headline, Iran will not automatically fall after Khamenei's death. This is according to the widow of the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's father. This is the Empress Farah Pahlavi being interviewed by the AFP news agency. The killing of Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei is historically significant, but will not automatically lead to the fall of the Iranian system. That's according to the widow of the country's last Shah, telling the AFP in an interview today. The passing of a man, however central he may be to the architecture of power, does not automatically mean the end of a system. These words from Farah Pahlavi, who has lived in exile in Paris since being driven out of Iran in the 1979 Islamic Revolution. She says what will be decisive is the ability of the Iranian people to unite around a peaceful, orderly, sovereign transition to a state governed by the rule of law, which she adds her son, Reza Pahlavi, is in the process of preparing. So that from the AFP, unpublished in today's edition of the Times of Israel. Dueling quotes from the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and from Steve Witkoff, United States Special Envoy to the Middle East. PM, Iran's nuke program would have been immune in months. Witkoff, they bragged to us about enrichment. The PM says the US-Israeli campaign will be swift and decisive, as Vice President J.D. Vance says the goal is to change Iran's mindset. Witkoff says Iranians shamelessly boast in talks they had uranium for 11 nuclear bombs and had evaded protocols. He revealed that Iranian negotiators boasted to the United States directly, with no shame, in talks earlier this year, that they had evaded international safeguards to enrich enough uranium so as to get to a place where they could deliver 11 nuclear bombs. In an interview with Fox News, the Prime Minister said that the reason we had to act now is because after we hit their nuclear sites and their ballistic missile program in June 2025, they started building new sites, underground bunkers that would make their ballistic missile program and their atomic bomb program immune within months. If no action was taken now, no action could be taken in the future. The Israeli PM's comments come less than 9 months after he declared at the end of the June war that Israel had achieved a historic victory over Iran that would abide for generations. US officials have offered mixed messages regarding whether regime change is the goal. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio said earlier on Monday that it was not, and that neutralizing the Iranian missile, navy, and nuclear threats is. The American president has vacillated on the matter. Meanwhile, Netanyahu said 95% of the problems in the Middle East are generated by Iran, and the fall of the regime would lead to a flood of peace deals between Israel and its Arab and Muslim neighbors. Let's hope so. The Islamic Revolution initially included socialists and communists who, post-revolution, were slaughtered in their homes and in the streets by the very regime they helped set up. Yes, they were the useful idiots. They were the ones that were the agitators, but they weren't the true believers, and they certainly weren't the ones most savage. They weren't the equivalent of the checker in that situation, and they paid for it with their lives. To the confusion and shock of left-wing groups across the Western world, and yet, like useful idiots, you still have leftists protesting what's going on in Iran right now, saying, hands off Iran. Could be honest and admit that they chose violence, at least. Yeah? For the most part, it seems that's what they're doing. Suhoor is a pre-drawn meal for fast. Ah, well, best of luck to you on your fasting. Now let's see here. Oh. This was interesting. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, former president of Iran, still part of the Ayatollah, the now late Ayatollah's inner circle. This from IranInternational.com. Ahmadinejad may still be alive after an assassination attempt, according to sources. These are informed sources telling Iran International today that Ahmadinejad may still be alive. The sources said Ahmadinejad was not harmed and had been moved to a safe place. Over the weekend, during Israel's attacks, Iranian media carried conflicting reports about Ahmadinejad's fate, with some outlets saying he had been killed, while others said they could not confirm the claim. So that's a problem. And when you survive something like that, you tend to want to get some payback. This bloke needs to be found, and he needs to be eliminated. Because he is one of those psychotic true believers that just wants to set the entire world on fire. He projects himself as this sweet and innocent old man, but as we all know, there is such a thing as the concept of the banality of evil. Ahmadinejad has banality of evil vibes all over him. So, unfortunate. Thought they had their man. Turns out he got away. Now the task is to find him and put an end to him permanently. I'm sure they were just as surprised now if Islam ever gained power in the West. It's still early days with that. Which is why we so often say around these parts, they have to go back. He's the one that supported the punishing of young girls in Iran for not wearing their hijab right in 2009. Yes, like I said, one of the true believers. A very dangerous man. And one whom has plenty of blood on his hands. Meanwhile, back to the American president. Not very happy with the Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez. So he had this to say.
Some of the European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was
5% payment to NATO.
Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't.
He's not wrong. Do we seriously think the Spanish are going to tell the Americans no? After the Americans pick themselves up off the floor from laughing at them so hard, they're just going to go into those bases and land and do whatever the fuck they want anyway. Only nuke I would prefer them having would be one exploding over Mecca during the Hajj. You said it, Harold, not me. But, let's deal with one international conflict at a time, yeah?
Have to, but they were unfriendly. And so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything.
Of course they wouldn't. Haven't got the money.
And they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
Could prove problematic. I know there's some Spanish companies that have investments in American companies, and some of those have defense and government contracts. This could get a bit hairy. Not for the Americans, but more for the Spanish. Pity the poor Spanish. They're the ones that are going to suffer the most. True, I did say it, not you. Just putting that on the record. Rosso, hello, good to see you. How you doing? How's the afternoon? How were the fancy pancakes that you had for breakfast, by the way? Spanish need to kick the socialist government out of parliament, ideally before the next election. Who knows? Maybe this will be the swift kick in the trousers they need, at least as far as the people are concerned, to do exactly that. We've got Poorly Market chiming in here. As of 5 hours ago, 20% chance Spain's PM is out this year. Live results, 24% chance out by the end of 2026. Only 13% chance by the end of the first half of the year. Going well, they almost put me in a food coma. Carbs will do that to you sometimes. But it's still early days. We're only just now getting into March. So much has happened already in 2026. It's still anybody's game between now and June 30th and now and December 31st. Get to this in a moment. Whilst we're still in the European and the Anglosphere, actually no, we'll hold off on this. Let me get through some of these other tabs for news and X. From the Daily Signal, justices invoke Founding Fathers' drinking habits and weighing gun ban for drug users. Most Supreme Court justices appeared skeptical of a federal law banning gun possession for illegal drug users and addicts during the Supreme Court arguments on Monday. Intermingling gun rights and the war on drugs, the case for the ACLU and the National Rifle Association on the same side. Strange bedfellows alert. While President Donald Trump's Justice Department is defending the existing law. The case coming out of Texas, where a federal grand jury indicted Ali Daniel Hemani, a marijuana user, in February 2023 for violating a law prohibiting firearm possession by a user of illegal drugs or a controlled substance. He sued to dismiss the indictment. The federal prohibition is part of the 1968 Gun Control Act. Sarah Harris, the principal deputy solicitor general, on Monday argued the law does not infringe upon the Second Amendment in part because of long-standing habitual drunkard laws that have been around since the colonial era. These laws impose certain restrictions on individuals with addiction that could pose a danger to themselves or others. Justice Neil Gorsuch asked whether this defendant would qualify as an habitual user. And then he brought up this interesting point. The habitual drunkard, the American Temperance Society back in the day, said has 8 shots of whiskey a day. And that only made you an occasional drunkard. So according to the American Temperance Society, way back when, 8 shots of whiskey, those are rookie numbers. Got to get those numbers up if you want to be considered an occasional drunkard. You had to do double that in the founding era. He added, John Adams took a drink of hard cider with his breakfast every day. James Madison reportedly drank a pint of whiskey every day. Thomas Jefferson said he wasn't much of a user of alcohol, only had 3 or 4 glasses of wine a night. Every night. These men were absolute fucking gigachads. Drink of hard cider a day with breakfast, pint of whiskey every day for Madison, 3 to 4 glasses of wine every night for Thomas Jefferson. These lads went hard. Pity their poor livers, though. So Gorsuch asked Harris, are they all habitual drunkards who would be properly disarmed for life under your theory? Harris replied, no, adding of the defendant, we know he uses marijuana a few times about every other day. Harris later explained the law would apply to frequent users of harmful drugs or those who are addicted. She said an addict is someone who has an uncontrollable urge to use the substance regardless of whether they have access to any particular moment in time. You can be an addict and not be an unlawful user because, for instance, you're in treatment. An unlawful user is someone judged by the objective criteria of their frequency of use, and adding is someone who has an uncontrolled urge they can overlap. The indictment said Himani knowingly used illegal drugs whilst possessing a Glock 19 9mm pistol. The prosecution did not allege Himani was intoxicated or using drugs at the time he possessed the firearm. Rather, prosecutors based the case on him being a regular drug user. But Himani challenged the indictment. The U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Texas granted the motion, dismissed the indictment. 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the dismissal. So far, everybody's upholding the dismissal of the indictment. It's just the feds that keep going, trying to take this up to the Supreme Court. Perhaps they're doing it because they want to get some sort of definitive ruling on it. Who knows? But you've got other justices. We can't really call Amy Coney Barrett a conservative. Brett Kavanaugh, both of them questioning whether laws on illegal drugs are applicable to the old habitual drunkard laws. Justice Clarence Thomas, staunch conservative justice, also asked Harris how the laws she's citing were different from older laws restricting the freedom of people who claim to be fortune tellers. Meanwhile, all 3 liberal justices seemed skeptical of the government's argument, as Justice Sonia Sotomayor asked if this rationale would allow for violating the constitutional rights of homeless people. Later in the hearing, Chief Justice John Roberts pressed Himani's lawyer Erin Murphy about her arguments that the government should assess such matters on a case-by-case basis. Murphy argued if you take the principle underlying habitual drunkards, the concept that the statutes back then require is somebody drinking to such excess that they can't care for themselves or their affairs, that they've lost self-control, and that they're posing a public safety risk. To which Roberts replied the question, if we're going to assess those on a case-by-case basis and apparently on an individual-by-individual basis? Murphy responded the statute effectively calls for an individualized basis, arguing you have to engage in an analysis of someone's actual use to figure out whether they are addicted to a controlled substance. If the government wants to try to say a particular substance is so categorically addictive, dangerous, that you can't use it regularly, okay, but it has to do that under the burden of proof. That seems like a lot of extra work, and I think that might be a bridge too far, even for the Supreme Court justices, based on the questioning that we're seeing in the transcripts here. So, we'll see how this turns out.